The sounds coming from the 12th floor weren't fire screams. As Marcus climbed the stairs, the words hitting his ears were enough to freeze him. Stay calm, or I'll kill them all. The Special Forces leadership he had retired from 23 years ago was now coming back to life. When smoke began rising from Plaza Tower in downtown Chicago's busiest street, this was just another routine fire alarm for everyone. Marcus Reed, 47 years old, was an experienced firefighter who had been serving with the Chicago Fire Department for 15 years. In the early morning hours, the alarm had gone off while he was having coffee with his colleagues at the station. Just routine again, Marcus had muttered while putting on his uniform. His other team members were also preparing with the same calm. How many fires had they seen? Hundreds. Maybe thousands. But the first reports coming from the radio showed that this fire was different. Attention all units, there's a fire on the 12th floor of Plaza Tower, but strange sounds are coming. Police units are also being directed to the scene. Marcus's hand stopped as he was about to put down the radio. He had been a firefighter for 15 years, but 23 years ago, he came from a completely different world. He had served as a team leader in the U.S. Army Special Forces in the counterterrorism unit. In 2001, he had retired to return to his family, then chose firefighting. Nobody knew. Nobody needed to know either. When they arrived at the scene, the crowd in front of the building was different than usual. People weren't just running away. They were looking with fear. "Fire department, don't go upstairs!" shouted the building's security guard. "There are armed men on the 12th floor. They raided the office. There are hostages inside." Marcus's world changed in an instant. The other firefighters around him were looking at each other in confusion. Police hadn't arrived yet. Ambulances were on their way. But the people upstairs didn't have time to wait. "What do the supervisors say?" Marcus asked, turning on his radio. "Wait until police arrive. Security protocol." But at that moment, a gunshot came from the 12th floor. Then screams, a woman's voice, a child's voice. In Marcus's mind, that night in Afghanistan 23 years ago came alive. The village school that the terrorist organization had raided. Inside were 12 children and 2 teachers. The same screams, the same feeling of helplessness. "I'm going up," said Marcus. While climbing the stairs, his past came back with each step. For 8 years in Army Special Forces, he had participated in the most difficult operations. In mountains, in cities, in all kinds of dangerous situations. But in 2001, when his son was born, he had left everything behind. "I will never touch a weapon again," he had told his wife. "From now on, I will only save lives, not take them." He had kept his word for 23 years. As firefighter Marcus Reed, he had rescued people from hundreds of fires. Nobody knew his old identity. When he reached the 10th floor, the smell of smoke had intensified. But this wasn't just fire smoke. There was also the smell of gunpowder. When he reached the 11th floor, the sounds began to be heard more clearly. As he approached the 12th floor, the real situation became clear. Sounds were coming from behind one of the doors in the corridor. It read News Agency Office on the door. A male voice from inside. "Stay calm or I'll kill them all." Marcus stopped. He knew this tone of voice. This was the voice of someone cornered, panicked, but still dangerous. He approached the door. He tried to see inside through the keyhole. The scene was horrific. 3 armed men had taken about 15 people hostage. Most were young journalists. Some were lying on the ground. Some had crouched in corners. The hostage takers didn't look professional. They were panicked. This made the situation even more dangerous. In Marcus's mind, his old training came alive. Hostage rescue operations, entry techniques, risk analysis. 23 years have passed. You're just a firefighter now, he whispered to himself. But the scream coming from inside erased all his hesitations. He turned on his radio. "Central, Marcus. 3 armed on 12th floor. About 15 hostages. When will police arrive?" "At least 10 minutes, Marcus. Don't increase the risk. 10 minutes." The sounds coming from inside said 10 minutes was too long. Marcus opened his firefighter bag. He had his axe. He had breaking tools. But these were insufficient against armed men. Then, out of old habit, he checked the fire extinguisher cabinet in the corridor. Inside were standard equipment, but also an emergency knife. A plan began to form in his mind. Alone against 3 armed men. But there were innocent people inside. If I don't do something now, I'll regret it forever. He listened to the door. From the conversations inside, he tried to understand the positions of the armed men. Marcus knocked lightly on the door. Fire department! The fire is under control. How is your situation? Panicked voices from inside. Fire department? Don't come here. I'm just checking the situation. Nobody will get hurt. During this conversation, Marcus was examining the door's lock mechanism, analyzing the sounds inside. The reflexes from 23 years ago were coming back. The first armed man was close to the door. The second was looking at the windows. The third was controlling the hostages. I'm opening the door, said Marcus. My hands are up. I just want to talk. When the door opened, the young man standing in front of him was extremely tense. The gun in his hand was trembling. You lie down like the others. But what Marcus did at that moment was a move that no one had seen for 23 years. The movement was so fast that the young man couldn't understand what happened. While Marcus's right hand pushed the gun up, his left hand twisted the man's wrist. In 1 second, the gun was flying in the air. The man was groaning on the ground. The other 2 armed men inside were shocked. How could this firefighter move like that? Who is this guy? Shouted the second one. As Marcus moved among the hostages, his old tactical knowledge was kicking in. Movement routes, cover points, threat analysis. Everything was in muscle memory. The second armed man wanted to shoot at Marcus, but the movement among the hostages was so calculated that he couldn't find a clean shot. Marcus grabbed the fire extinguisher and threw it at the second man. While the man reflexively turned his gun to the extinguisher, Marcus closed the distance. The close combat techniques he had learned 23 years ago were stored in his body's memory. The third and last armed man, realizing that the situation was getting out of control, tried to use one of the hostages as a shield. Stop, or I'll kill her! She was a young female journalist. Her eyes looked at Marcus with fear. Marcus stopped. This situation was the same as that night 23 years ago. In Afghanistan, the terrorist had done the same thing. Who are you? What the man shouted. Firefighters don't move like that. You're right, Marcus said in a calm voice. I'm not just a firefighter. At that moment, police sirens were heard from the door, but Marcus knew he couldn't risk the hostage's life. I'm retired Sergeant Marcus Reed from U.S. Army Special Forces. For 8 years, I dealt with people like you. The man's hand began to tremble. Impossible. You're old. You're a firefighter. Age is just a number, said Marcus. But experience never disappears. While talking to the man, Marcus was slowly approaching. There was authority in his voice, but no threat. I see you're very young. Have you thought about the end of this? Police are here. No escape. Now, either you surrender or it ends here. Are you really from Special Forces? 8 years? 47 successful operations. I never lost an innocent person in any of them. The man slowly loosened his grip on the hostage's arm. Drop your weapon, son. Nobody needs to die today. The gun fell to the ground. The hostage was free. The other hostages stood up crying. At that moment, police units entered. In front of them, Marcus in his firefighter uniform was waiting, having neutralized 3 armed men. The police commander asked in amazement, How did you... Long story, said Marcus. Did you call an ambulance? There are wounded. The next day, local newspapers announced the incident with big headlines. Firefighter hero saves hostages. but none of them could learn Marcus's real past. At the fire station, his colleagues looked at him with different eyes. Marcus, are you really just a firefighter? Marcus smiled. Now, yes, but sometimes the past comes back to protect the future. From that day on, Marcus Reed, who worked at Chicago Fire Department, remained the same calm firefighter. But now everyone knew. Some heroes hide under the most unexpected uniforms, and sometimes you come to put out fires, but you leave having saved lives.